More than 30 people are arrested every single day for things they post on the internet. Incidentally, that's more people than America were arresting for speech during the first Red Scare. If that's not a free speech crisis, I don't know what is. And I think the problem in this discussion, and we've seen it demonstrated here, Zack, I dare say, is that there's a lot of me speech rather than free speech. So we throw Graham Linehan under the bus whilst talking about Palestine action. I agree, people shouldn't be arrested for holding up placards saying I support Palestine action, but I also think
lots of people say they
shouldn't be arrested either.
That they are very different.
I think the law is wrong in various different areas. I just wish that people like Zack would show a little bit more consistency. If it's speech you agree with, then you are happy to...
One is about speaking out against the ongoing genocide, and one is showing solidarity with
people
who
agree with
inciting
violence
against women.
If I may... I think the police in recent years have been carrying on like a cross between the Stasi and the Keystone Cops. They're harassing anyone at the behest of anyone who happens to be offended, and that's a big problem. Before we even get into questions of wealth taxes, redistribution, what have you, you need a growing economy. It needs to be a dynamic economy. It needs to be something which is delivering for people, in which energy is getting cheaper, in which we have industry. Again, none of this is possible if you're not only in favour of all of these insane net zero policies, which frankly have been making all of these things worse, but also because of the fact that you're ideologically opposed to the idea of economic growth. What you want to impoverish this country to maybe make up for less than 1% of global emissions.
I think wildfires and floods in this country might impoverish this country. We've seen wildfires and floods. We've seen in Valencia people die, and we've been very lucky that that hasn't yet happened.
People are not buying this doomsday stuff.
We should ask who funds spiked, because I think when we look into who
this is hilarious. Our readers, by the way, who give £5 a month, so thank you.
What you're doing is excusing racism.
It's an absolutely outrageous accusation. The only reason you're making that, Narinder, is because you know you're on the back foot. I made a point in my first answer of condemning the content of that particular post. If you're aware of what we at Spike do, we make the case for freedom of speech in all instances. We are totally consistent on this. When Ricky Jones, that Labour councillor, got let off...
Are you disagreeing with what the judge said? The judge said...
Narinder, you've got to let me make the point before you get upset by it. What I'm saying is we are completely consistent on this point. When Ricky Jones, that Labour councillor, was let off last week by a jury when he was speaking at a protest and suggested that far-right protesters should have their throats slit, we welcome that, because we also don't want the criminal law to get in the habit of locking up people for things they say in the heat of the moment and then regret. I'm consistent on this. I don't think you are.
I feel sad, actually, that you have no sympathy for brown and black ethnic minority communities in this country.
You should be embarrassed that you're reducing yourself to this.
Tom.
Absolutely outrageous. Also, you've just proved my point. I said I'm consistent. I think Ricky Jones shouldn't have seen the inside of a prison cell. I don't think Lucy Connolly should have seen the inside of a prison cell. The fact that you've got to reduce yourself to making accusations, I don't care about black and brown people, just shows that you don't have an answer to the argument, which is that free speech, justice, this should be about the principle. It should be blind. It shouldn't be about, do we disagree with this person, agree with this person, like this person, dislike this person? It's about fundamental liberties, and they are eroded when you allow the state to be this excessive and authoritarian when it comes to speech.
Keir Starmer has failed to stamp his authority on the country. I mean, he's breaking all kinds of records for unpopularity. Despite being an incredibly boring man, has managed to become more unpopular than Margaret Thatcher and Tony Blair in their time, which takes some hell of a doing. He's now also clearly failed to stamp his authority on his own party. His hand-picked candidate, Bridget Phillipson, came short. Not nearly as much as people expected her to, but nevertheless, this is pretty telling. Will Lucy Powell be able to turn it around?
Can I just jump in here for a second? These are two women with 26 years of experience and in cabinet. And what you're saying is that this is all about the man.
Well, I was about to make the second point about how terrible I think they are on their own terms, if you would let me. But Lucy Powell is a great example. I think there is something grim and unpleasant about the fact that in the week in which, say, the grooming gangs inquiry completely unwound, someone who was on record on the BBC only a few months ago dismissing that decades-long scandal as a dog whistle became deputy leader. I get that Labour are running scared of reform and they think that reverting back to this script of just calling people racist will work for them, even though it hasn't worked over a very long time.
There's a massive disconnect with what you're saying, because you're saying that we should focus on the stuff that's happening in our communities, the assaults and the violence, but you get a free pass if you're a leader. And it just shows your white privilege, I'm afraid, that you say it doesn't matter to me.
And not for the first time you're putting words in people's mouth.
The whole basis of Brexit was to get rid of the Poles and the Romanians.
That's a hell of a leave.
For the British.
A third of ethnic minorities in Britain voted leave. Are they racist as well? Do they want to kick everyone out? Do they want to kick themselves out?
No, I'm not saying that. If it wasn't for Nigel Farage, would there be a Brexit? No. And a vast part of that was we need to send the Romanians and the Poles back.
Nick, there is such thing as opinion. There's also such thing as facts.
Benito Mussolini, Adolf Hitler, Donald Trump. Il Duce, der Führer, the Donald. The Romans salute, the Sieg Heil,
the YMCA dance. The comparison is so absurd it practically debunks itself. Fascism, and especially its Nazi form, was an evil the like of which the world had never seen, and thankfully hasn't seen since. Totalitarian control, messianic dictatorship, a cult of racial superiority, paramilitaries crushing the left at home, a Darwinian militaristic struggle abroad, the worship of war and violence, the mechanised attempt, let's not forget, to murder all of Europeans' Jews. If that sounds like America in 2025 to you, then I suggest you leave here and have a nice long lie down. In a second. Trump, I'm silencing all dissent tonight. Trump, you can absolutely say that Trump is illiberal, that he's want to fly off the handle over words that hurt him or democratic votes that do not go his way. But that does not make him a fascist. If he was in the UK, that would make him a Guardian columnist. Or maybe a member of the Green Party. If we accept this motion, we accept the dilution of fascism and its horrors. We defang that word, we reduce it to a swear word and a smear. We turn the graveyards of the 20th century into a playground in which to have our own political spats. That is an insult to the millions of people who lost their lives to fascism, particularly European Jewry, and I hope you will reject this motion as a consequence. Thank you.